Welcome. My name is Tim Wright. I'm the director of the Corky McMillin Center, and this is our inaugural podcast, and we're pleased to have our esteemed guests, Papa Doug Manchester and Ted Eldridge from Manchester Financial, and along with me is Alden Cole, who's on the board of the Corky McMillin Center and runs the capital markets group at JLL in San Diego. We're going to have a series of questions for Papa Doug Manchester, who is a graduate of the university, started his real estate career at the university, on the university campus, and is actually responsible for some of its development. So welcome, Papa Doug, and welcome, Ted, and welcome, Alden.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good morning or good afternoon, whatever this is played.
Excellent. Well, let me start out. Papa Doug, you are a graduate of the business school at San Diego State. You took business classes. My question is, did you have any real estate classes when you were attending the university?
No,
There
wasn't any real estate
right.
classes at that time. There was insurance and finance, and I graduated with a BS in business with a major in insurance.
And I think you mentioned on the way over, your first real estate project was actually here on campus. If you could share a little bit about that, that might be an interesting launch pad.
It really is. 5812 Lino Paseo was a 3-bedroom home, and I leased it for $150 a month. And the Northwestern Mutual Life Insurance Company, who I was working for at that time, gave me $25 a month to put a sign, and I was a campus representative for Northwestern Mutual. I had 3 fraternity brothers that paid $50 a month, so I lived there rent-free, and utilities were paid by Northwestern Mutual for the $25 a month. So I figured, well, that's really the start of my real estate career, because you get enough tenants in, you can pay for a lot of things. But obviously that building, that home is no longer here. It's obviously, as is the entire university, San Diego State University. You wouldn't recognize it, obviously, from what it was.
And that was your first and only student housing project, from what I can take, despite the profitability.
Right, exactly.
Right.
And I was junior class president, and at that time there was a big deal about putting a student center here. And so I was privileged and proud to know that I led the way for a vote in favor of where we are now at the student, what do you call it?
Student center here.
Student center.
Well, good. Alden, what's your follow-up to that?
I guess, at what point, as a young aspiring student, did you think, I'm going to make a career change and really pursue real estate in lieu of finance or insurance? At what point did you say, that's my first deal beyond, being a student, and actually kind of jumped into the development business?
Well, back in those days, it's a long time ago. I'm older than dirt. So the fact is that there was a great recruiting to the San Diego area because of the military, and had a lot of good minds that came out, and obviously ended up with companies like Qualcomm and obviously General Atomics, et cetera. And a lot of those people were Northwestern Mutual Life Insurance policyholders, and I had to go to a fraternity party at Sigma Chi, and midway through the party, I'd excuse myself and go get dressed in a coat and tie and go out and introduce myself as their service representative and try to sell them additional life insurance or change beneficiaries, et cetera. But I then moved on to had a lot of wealthy startup companies like IVAC and IMED, and ended up building them buildings and selling them insurance. And that's how I sort of transitioned from insurance and finance into real estate.
But you were recruited by an insurance agent here on campus, right, to start your insurance career? sold insurance to everybody in the grocery line and everywhere else you were. So. Remember that?
My wedding. Yeah. So, there was a young. It's amazing how things happen in your life, and it changes your life. There was a young guy from Des Moines, Iowa, that came out here and became the general agent for Connecticut Mutual, which was a competitor to Northwestern Mutual.
Sure.
Still a great company. And I'll never forget, he and his wife took me and my wife, Betsy, who graduated from here. She was a sweetheart of Sigma Chi and lived right next door to the Sigma Chi house. And so we would never be able to afford to go to Mr. A's. And it was just opening in 1969, I think, or 65. We were married in January of 65, and I think in the summer of 65, we were invited by this fellow by the name of Peter Chaconis to go to dinner. And he had heard that I was involved in insurance and representing, and he was looking for a campus representative and also then to transition full-time. And he took Betsy and I to dinner, and we went to this incredible new place called Mr. A's, which it turns out we now own that building, but certainly would never even conceive of even being able to go to a restaurant like that, but we did. And I felt everybody, in fact, wants to be wanted in life.
Right.
And he took a bet on me, and he said, I want you to come to work. And I did work 18 hours a day. My perfect time would be to make an appointment for breakfast and one for lunch and afternoon and evening. And I'll never forget, I wish that I would have had one of those GPS on a rainy night to go meet a policyholder of Northwestern Mutual in somewhere raining in San Diego, looking for the address in a Thomas Brother map.
Right.
It was
Coordinates.
I could have sold a lot more insurance had I got there sooner. But anyway, that's what one thing led to another, and I was able to sell a lot of insurance, became a national leader in insurance, and then obviously everybody that is doing business has to do business in real estate, basically. And so I sold my first $1 million policy to a guy by the name of Dick Kramer, who actually was founded I actually helped name the name. IVAC was their intravenous feeding for hyperalimentation. I'm really proud of the fact I was a co-founder of that company, and it has saved basically billions of lives, literally the billion and billions of lives over that. Because it used to be drip,
Right.
And with the volumetric infusion pump, it became you could feed people through
Like the tube.
tubes, and so anyway, and it didn't sound good to have it. His name was Dick Kramer. It didn't sound good to have IDIC. And so his wife was Alice, and so we named it Intravenous Alice Kramer. It was IVAC. It was a very, very successful company. We sold to Eli Lilly for $99 million, and he was somewhat sidetracked and not treated well, Wall Street. And so we formed another company called iMed, and it was founded on my company, one of my buildings that I built in the La Jolla Bank and Trust building, which I founded back in 1974. And we ended up selling that company for $490 million to Warner Lambert, which at that time was the largest private acquisition at that time. So anyway, we've we were involved with Sorrento Valley, which is now, and it could have, Sorrento Mesa, we were involved in a lot of different things. And then, of course, we ended up, in addition to the La Jolla Bank and Trust Company, which I founded and built the building, because we didn't have a tenant, so I had to form a bank to have a
You
tenant.
deliver your own.
So then I came across this Dow Chemical Corporation, huge company from Midland, Michigan, wanted to bring their corporate headquarters to La Jolla, and they had built they had acquired a bunch of property, and then during the Vietnam War, of course, they were the manufacturers of napalm, and so we had started to have protesters here. Well, Midland, Michigan, is pretty conservative. And so they found out about these protesters, about them coming out and changing their corporate headquarters. And they decided that, hell with it, we're not going to do that. So they gave the property, except for 17 acres that was left over, that I ended up buying anyway, they gave it to Scripps. That's where Scripps Green is now.
Yeah, up in Torrey Pines.
And that is where you started with your Torrey Pines development.
Right. So that's where I took the 17 acres and bought the. It's one of the interesting. Bought the property over the phone, and back in those days, lawyers did not have the same reputation that lawyers have today. I mean, their word was their bond. And which I can't say that today, unfortunately. And so...
Not just lawyers.
It is with Ben.
Yeah,
So
real
anyway,
estate agents.
we ended up building the Torrey Pines Business Research Park. And then I was criticized by the San Diego Union, which I ended up buying later, many years later, but for taking, not building downtown San Diego, but going to La Jolla to the campus of the Torrey Pines Business Research Park. And so the end result is that we ended up building later the Columbia Center, which was at that time the tallest and largest building in downtown.
So was that mid-'80s? 80.
Tell them the story.
80s.
Tell them the story that's interesting about the flag on top of Columbia Center. This is a good story.
Yeah, there's two flags that if you were driving around San Diego, one flag in La Jolla is on top of the La Jolla Bank and Trust building, or now it's Manchester Financial Center. And I completed the building, and, I was not that schooled in architecture and all that, and I didn't like the way the roof looked as far as penthouse where the elevator shaft is and all that. So I went back in to change it, and they said, well, you can't change it because Proposition D passed, and you're already above 30 feet. So, and I said, well, give me at least a permit for a flagpole. And they said, well, you can't do that because, a 50-foot flagpole on top of a 50-foot building you already have, that's against regulations. And so I put it up anyway. and they ended up, then the city got involved and cited me and then I sent it down to then, who's a good friend of mine, Pete Wilson. And I said, Pete, you take down the American flag. Well, it's still there.
Yeah.
So
On both buildings.
and so then now the other building was supposed to be 100 feet higher. It was it's 27 stories and should have been 37 stories. But they cut me down at the last minute because it was on the flight path of runway 27.
All right.
And so that's the reason why they're so a little squatty. But so I got so they didn't allow me to build it to its full height, but they did allow a 100-foot flagpole to go on top of it. Well, I had a good, great year or something. Now, does that make any sense at all? But anyway, I ended up, with my aviation background, I ended up being in a position where I proved to them that 500 feet is the limitation, is that's how we got the approval for the Hyatt and some of the other buildings downtown. So
That was your first deal downtown, Papa Doug?
well, actually, there was another one that's smaller, but it's 12 stories on Balboa Park. And,
Okay.
but yes,
Okay. Great.
Did you bring in partners on that, or how did you put that deal together? Because at the time, I would imagine it was quite a feat to capitalize a project like that.
well, it's
Especially downtown.
from
Yeah.
it was really basically the seed funding, for all the plans and specification, came from my insurance, came from the internal. I never had a partner.
Okay.
I'm not opposed to partners. It's just that,
You didn't need one on that deal.
yeah,
Yeah.
You were willing to risk it all.
risk it all. never bet the entire farm, but you certainly bet
A
a
portion
portion of it, if in fact you're secure in your thing. But never trust a bank is my philosophy, ever.
Well,
And
you
then
got it done.
and that seemed to be somewhat of a catalyst to migrate from Mission Valley, which would, prior to that probably was more, I guess, attractive for companies and businesses. Was that somewhat of a catalyst to kick off a lot of development in downtown?
Well, the convention center was down in Mission Valley at that time. Was that right, Papa Doug? Was it?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Right.
And I
So that preceded the convention center by
A long way.
long
I gave back the property for the convention center to build because I was awarded, that's a whole nother long story, the rights to build the Marriott, well, at that time it was the Intercontinental,
Right.
and I gave back the property for the convention center to be built in exchange for a Hyatt parcel. And so I did all that, but initial funding came from insurance, and then of course the Lawyer Bank and Trust building and that investment, and so through the grace of God and a lot of prayers, and including my wife, who's a graduate here of San Diego State after she had 3 children.
Yeah, the one building in La Jolla was kind of the mainstay of his assets. It was a 79 Ivanhoe building, which is still there and we still own. And he's refinanced out of that a couple of times to put into these other projects.
Right.
That building's kind of been a mainstay of the assets in the family.
It's great to be able to self-finance those at that time, because institutional venture partners, as we've witnessed, was really something that wasn't super ubiquitous back then. So the move to the waterfront, I mean, I would say if you ask the average person on the street about Papa Doug Manchester, they say the waterfront, you kind of are responsible for what the waterfront looks like right now, and you're responsible for the fact the convention center's down there. And when you get out on the bay, and I'm out on the bay once in a while, and you look at the skyline, it's really gorgeous. And I think we thank you for your significant role in making it happen. Was that it sounded like every development everywhere, it was a struggle. Did they want the development? I understood they wanted the development closer to where the old Anthony's was, or anything, or was it always going to be down there, that near the Seaport, where Seaport Village ended up, and the Coronado Landing and all that? Was that always going to be where it was going to happen?
Pretty much so. Although that brings up, I brought in the aircraft carrier Midway as a tourist attraction for the Hyatt, and it's become actually one of the best tourist attractions.
I think it's the number 2 in San Diego behind the zoo,
And
as far as attendance.
But the Coastal Commission gave me a really tough time because I was shading the fish habitat, and they wanted me to take it down the South Bay, and I refused. And we won that battle with the Coastal Commission, and here we have a great tourist attraction. And we're now obviously, or have developed over the last few years, right across the street, from the Midway. We ended up selling most of most of the project, but we still have one project that's 1,000 rooms to be built as a Fairmont, Manchester Fairmont, San Diego, and it's 1,000. What's it? Almost
1,100 rooms.
1,100
Yeah.
rooms.
Yep.
So, but all this originated from insurance, some investments. Obviously, IMED, IVAC, were
That's interesting.
great investments. But I was there at the beginning with them, and it was just, there's nothing ever, whoever in fact has anything. I've got a few things that I do want to share with you. At least I was coming out here. And I don't know whether we have time to do this, but I got 1 through 15. To
That's great.
never trust a bank. Okay, they'll give you good, they'll wink at you and say, "Yeah, we're going to do this deal." But the bottom line is the fact that until such time as it's done and you have money in the bank, never trust a bank, because
You never know.
never get organized by a trade union. Avoid bad decisions by measuring risk, and never bet the farm. Play what if, instead of sitting back and waiting for problems to happen. Say, what if we did have an earthquake? How are you going to react to it? I always say, I get up every day, I say, life is like a Super Bowl every day. But play it like it's the last day of your life, a 60-minute game, but with 0 timeouts and no instant replays. And create a positive memories from yourself and all of those who surround you. Create positive memories for yourself and all those around you, and never, ever run out of cash.
Write that down.
Ever. If you hit rock bottom, use it as a new solid foundation. And good decisions come from wisdom, and wisdom comes from experience, and experience comes from making bad decisions. Never hesitate to catch someone doing something right. It's very important.
Great point.
Always have an exit out of the alley. Avoid following up. This is a very good one. Avoid following up positive statements with, but, he's a great architect, but, he's made a mistake here, So why would you even say he's a good architect? Or anyway, so and so just in short, is that God is in everyone and everything, and seek Him out and keep Him near you, and always have the man in the glass as your best friend. And I always quote, when you get what you want and you struggle for self, and the world makes you king for a day, just go to the mirror and look at yourself. And see what the man has to say, because it's not your father or mother or wife whose judgment you must pass. The father whose verdict counts most in your life is the one staring back in the glass. He's the one to please, never mind all the rest, for he's with you clear up to the end. And if you pass your most dangerous and difficult test, if that man in the glass is your friend. You may be like Jack Horner and chisel plum and say you're a wonderful guy, but the man in the glass says you're only a bum if you can't look them straight in the eye. You may fool the whole world down the pathway of years and get pats on the back as you pass. But your final reward will be heartache and tears if you cheated the man in the glass. So just keep that.
That's really good.
That's something that
Love this.
is always good.
That's really good. Well, you've built this great real estate empire and a great history of development and ownership of iconic assets, mainly in San Diego, but also in other parts of the country, including Austin. What's up for Manchester Financial right now? I know you're active with a few projects. Ted, do you guys want to talk about what you guys have on your plate right now?
Sure. Papa Doug alluded to it, but we've got the property downtown that we still own with the 99-year ground lease with the federal government, the Navy, and we've got a master planned 1,100-room hotel there, and we're out looking for debt and equity. Which Tim and Alden can never come through for us, so we'll probably put that deal together, but still waiting for the call, but whatever. Yeah, so that's kind of your project, actually. So anyway, debt and equity's tight right now. So obviously we're just sitting on it. We've got, it fully planned out with our architect Ginsler and our contractor Clark Construction, and we've got pricing, and we actually even pulled permits from the city of San Diego. So we're kind of waiting it out and waiting for the equity markets to change a little bit to put that one, start that project. And then obviously we're working on the Navwar deal, which is 70 acres off of Old Town Exit. That's a redevelopment of the Navwar site, which we're under contract with the Navy and working with them on the entitlements with the city of San Diego, which is probably going to take a couple of years to get through that. And in the end, there's some different plans we're working on, but the one that the Navy wants to move forward with right now is like 9,000 additional housing units in a multifamily development, which would be huge.
That's massive.
Yeah. So anyway, working
it's a
on
city within a city.
Yeah. So. And that'll also have some retail and a couple of smaller hotels as well, but the majority of it is a multifamily project, and we're working with the JLL team on that. And Kip and his team have been really helpful, giving us evaluations and the information we need to relay that over to the port. Also working on an interesting use there as well with a data center. We've got because it's on federal property, we're exempt from some of the rules of California limiting the power source to the site. So. We're working with some data center users maybe to do a cloud data center basically versus an AI center there. So working on with SDG&E and some other people to try to figure out if we can get a favorable rate for those users and bring one of the data centers into that site as well. So yeah, a lot going on, and we're also trying to buy some limited service hotels. We feel like there's a niche there right now that if we could acquire, a pool of those, and long term would give us some good returns and some good assets to hold long term. So we're looking at those too.
It's a great product.
Yeah.
And one of the things that the 1,000-room hotel that we're proposing and has been approved and we're shovel ready. Once you give us some
lettuce.
And we're actually flying tomorrow to Washington D.C. to talk to the Qatari group, and we're developing a drone with General Atomics also. But anyway, one thing we have going for the hotel down there is the Hyatt paid like $15 million in rent to the Port District.
Yeah.
We have a 97-year lease left on our property, and we have zero rent because we've already paid.
Prepaid.
Build them a $200 million building in exchange for the property.
It's on federal property, so all the other hotels that are built in downtown are on state of California, which is basically the Port of San Diego. Yeah. So those are all on percentage rents. So as soon as you rent out a room, you sell a beer, you sell anything, a parking, there's a percentage of that income that comes back to the Port District. So like the Hyatt, I think paid over $15 million last year in port rent. And so our property is exempt from that because it's not on port tidelands, it's actually federal property. So our deal with the Navy is $1 a year. Actually, all of them prepaid that for us last month. So
I heard that check bounce.
It was cash. We needed pennies, I think. So we're exempt from any sort of percentage rents, which makes a huge advantage for that hotel moving forward with its competition on the waterfront. So we're excited about that. Yeah,
that's right. And the convention center is continuing to. Is it looking at another expansion right now? I haven't been tracking it.
Yeah, I mean, again, the city doesn't have a lot of money. Money's tough right now. They do have plans for an expansion, but it's a funding issue. So they've tried to raise TOT and do some other things to try to fund that, but I don't think it's been successful. So it's got to go on the ballot.
Right.
So,
well, it's a great development down there.
Yeah.
But we have what we were created with the Hyatt and the Marriott is basically they can accommodate a lot of conventions, even without any addition to the convention center.
Yeah, the idea is to keep those groups in-house. So you don't want them going over the convention center. You want them to rent your rooms for the meetings and keep them in-house. And it's kind of what we're doing on our new hotel. It's a little bit off of the not very close to the convention center. But if we keep the groups in house, you keep them there for 2 or 3 meals a day instead of one, and they're over at the convention center. It's good. And so we build our hotels with a lot of meeting room space and ballrooms to accommodate those bigger rooms.
That's kind of the strategy you took with Austin.
Yeah, exactly.
Really
and we're right next door to the Austin Convention Center, which obviously has been demoed. I don't know if you've followed that, but they're rebuilding that and doubling the size of that. And our hotel in Austin is actually, we have a bridge over into the old convention center. We'll have one into the new convention center too. But keeping those people in house has been great. So we bring big groups in, and they don't even need to go to the convention center.
That's a great strategy.
Yeah.
So really still bullish on San Diego.
Absolutely.
And downtown specifically.
I mean, when is San Diego really taking a dive? I mean, I out of all the markets in the country, it's one that's, when things go bad, it dips, but it doesn't fall.
Yeah.
And always comes back strong. I mean, from the residential side to the commercial side, values have always increased through time, and it's a safe place to put your money, and that's why we're here. So.
And I actually, for San Diego State students that may be looking at this in the future, people say, "Hey, what is your best recommendation?" And I say to them, "Find out where you want to live." Because relationships are everything. Banking, doctors, whatever. Partners. Relationship is everything in life. And so I had a kid that, I'm close to, and he went to New York. But then he was going to come back, do an internship here in San Diego. I said, "Why are you doing that? You want to live in New York, stay there and create relationships." So the bottom line is the fact you got to, in fact, choose where you're going to live and where you want to bring up your children.
And those relationships, like your relationship with Dick Kramer, is kind of what got you off the ground. So that's important.
And I can't stress enough is that San Diego, we've been tempted to move like everybody else out of state, and as bad as the state is from the standpoint of lots of stuff, it's still, in my opinion, the finest city in America. And we coined that back in the 80s with Pete Wilson. And I try to emphasize that every chance I get, because it is the finest city, in my opinion, in the entire country. And notwithstanding all of the problems that we have. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking about your career, the fact is that if this is a place where you want to raise your children, stay here and make it here. You see, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere, as they say in New York, okay? But the bottom line is the fact that this is a great place to make it here. And I've been blessed by God and family to have had an opportunity to change for the better this city, and through all of the other assets and through all other gifts and so forth for perhaps the country. And with the volumetric infusion pump, that's changed the world. And I was privileged and honored to be involved in that from the very beginning.
That's really great advice. And, we, some of our students here even have spent time with the Real Estate Society on campus, emphasizing the importance of creating a networked foundation to grow off, and the exponential value of, meet 30 people, and next thing you know, that's 90. Next thing you know, that's a number I can't personally calculate. But it's really important, because I think trying to go somewhere, hop around, and not create the networking foundation that is critical to success, like you've had and you've had, Ted, is important. You can't just pick up stakes and all of a sudden expect to have the same stature, connection, and relationships that you do.
And really, from the commercial real estate side, I mean, I was a broker at CBRE for 10 years before I got into development with Papa Doug, but it's a really smaller community. I mean, if you reach out as a young person coming up, out of college and want to get into commercial real estate, there's not a lot of brokerage houses, and there's, I'm in 4 or 5 managers. I mean, you being one of them, and those people will take your lunch appointment. They're willing to, mentor you or give you some advice. I mean, I meet with young kids all the time too, and I think brokerage is a great place to start, just to learn and get your foundation. I mean, my son is working at JLL right now and is grinding, but that's what it takes. And I think those relationships that you make early on, don't be afraid to reach out. I mean, all those people are available to you if you really want to go there. So my point is that it's a small community, and you'll learn about it fairly quickly if you want to.
And the insurance, when I started in the insurance business, you do good for them, and you could do well for yourself. And I have relationships that I've had for all of my life through me selling life insurance or me building a building, for them. So bottom line is it's a great opportunity. We live in the greatest country in the world. We live still in the greatest state in the country, and I think we live in the greatest city within the state. So go for it.
Well, that's great. Well, Papa Doug, thanks so much for sharing the history and your insights. Those were awesome. Ted, thank you for bringing us up to speed on Manchester Financial and kind of what you guys got going and your advice for students going forward. Alden, thanks for joining and kind of providing some great color commentary for us. So thanks, everyone, and we'll see you
God bless
out there. Thanks.
All of you involved, and thank you for all your hard work.